Hello everyone, welcome back to Be the Whole You. My name is Gulveg and it is that time again where we have the full moon and we're going to take a look at the astrology as well as the tarot to gain some insight on how to best align with this lunar energy so that we can make the best use of it. All right, so this particular full moon is in Aries. I do have some notes here on this that there's a few things here that seemed really poignant in this particular lunar alignment. One thing that I think is really interesting about this full moon is the full moon's in Aries and the sun is in Libra. And Libra is a relator kind of sign, whereas Aries, its priority is first and foremost for the sovereign self. I look at Aries as one of every zodiac sign has like a medicine or a lesson that it can convey to us. And for Aries, it's teaching us how to first and foremost take care of ourselves. It's very much like that whole concept of you have to first fill your own cup before you can help other people fill their cup. And I had a teacher who once said, fill your cup to not just the brim, but where it's overflowing into the saucer, and then give of the saucer, and then you will never have a dry cup. And I love that analogy. Same thing about like when they say, put your own oxygen mask on first. Aries knows this lesson. It masters this lesson. And Libra is a relator, and it can teach us how to be diplomatic. It can teach us how to negotiate. It teaches us how to balance duality, and it can teach us how to use diplomacy in order to have peaceful and sustainable relationships. And so we have very much this beautiful alignment where we're being asked how to renegotiate our own boundaries and balance between our own needs and the needs of the community. That's at least what I see in this full moon. So I'm really interested to see what the tarot has to say around this. And there's a few other alignments too that seemed really important when I was taking a look at the star chart. And but we'll get into that in a second. So I first want to see what the tarot has to say. All right, so even if you're watching and a recording, I'm of the belief that time and space, it is mutable. And so let's just set the intention that whatever piece of the messages that are being conveyed that are most important for you personally, that those are the pieces that will highlight for you. And so let's set the intention that the messages that flow through be one that supports the highest good of all involved. May it have a ripple effect to support the highest good of all creation. We ask that the messages that flow through this reading, may they give us clarity on how to best align with the full moon in Aries on this day, October 9th, 2022, to serve our best and highest good. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. Okay. Usually I shuffle more than once, but that feels like that's complete. And all right. So very interesting. We're talking about like relationships and where do our needs start and begin, and where does the needs of the community start and begin? How can we negotiate those boundaries? How can we negotiate and make sure that, essentially everybody has what they need? Not necessarily what they want, but what they need. And what's very interesting is on that whole theme, the very first card that comes up is Two of Cups reversed. And the Two of Cups is about relationships. And in this case, it's reversed, meaning that there's a very good chance that one or more relationships that that have imbalance in them at this point will be highlighted for us. And there's a medicine sign you can see on this card. I'm not sure if you can see on the camera. I hope you can. But it's the sign of medicine. It's the caduceus sign. And this symbol, the caduceus symbol, is not something that is modern. It's something that has been around for a really long time, and modern medicine has adopted it. And unbeknownst to most folks who maybe look at this sign every day, the snakes that coil up the center staff, and then you have the wings that come out the top, this is the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine energies that go up the central channel of the spine, and that they say that they meet at the third eye, and then this creates enlightenment and create an illumination. And when things are all balanced, we have health. Energy is flowing, our intuition is connected with our physical embodiment, and all is well. And then when things are in balance, then we have an impediment of energy, and sickness can ensue, and we're not clear-minded, and so on and so forth. And so this is calling us to take in order to balance any of these relationships that you might even just have a subtle spidey sense that it's like, something's not right. Even if it's subtle, it's like, that's a ding, ding, ding. Let's not gaslight ourselves into pretending that something is okay when it's not, because then that always ends up just compiling into something bigger. But the perspective that's needed to be taken here is one that comes from a place of, what do I need to be healthy? And not just healthy physically, but what do I need in order to ensure my own health and well-being, spiritually, mentally, emotionally. And where we can lean into is we can actually lean into, ironically, our imagination and our creativity, which is very interesting because the full moon in Aries is at 16 degrees. And 1 and 6 equals 7 in numerology. And number 7 is the number of creativity, and that is the Princess of Cups, my friends. The Princess of Cups is about expecting good surprises. So, and because it's right set up, that's why it's like positive surprises. And so there's a fish coming out of the cup on this card. And so it is like expecting the unexpected, but in this case, it might be a good surprise. So if you have to have some uncomfortable communication, of course, tapping into the Libra diplomacy so that we might be able to smooth the edges. I think this came up in our last reading too, where a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. I think I remember that from our last reading, and from the new moon. And that's coming up again, is like smoothing the edges can allow it. It's not about giving up it's not about giving up our authenticity. It's not about people pleasing. It's about how can I best be heard. If we lean too much into the Aries, and because Aries is also it can be a combative sign, we could end up actually being heard through somebody's hurt ego. And when that happens, we're not being clearly understood. It's being filtered through something that could very easily cause some really disrespectful conflict. And so, spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. Lean into what you imagine the best outcome to be. What is it that, it's very easy to say, okay, this is not working, this is not working, this is not working. But what is the long game? Like, okay, that's not working, so what would it look like to have this working? Instead, because if we don't have those communications with some sort of solution in mind, then all we're doing is bitching. So being productive in the communication. And this is going to require us to let go of some self-limiting beliefs and habits. The Eight of Swords, the woman that's in the middle of the swords, she's actually holding on to her rope that's tied her up. She could just let it go at any point, take off the blindfold, and walk through the swords. But for whatever reason, she's deciding to stay there. So in some cases, this might mean severing contact with people. In certain cases, it might be like a hard line where we might just have to let go of some situations or some people. The other thing, though, too, is that the thing that first came to my mind is, as far as letting go of a persona or a belief that we're this person or this situation's victim. And that there, I think, is the Aries medicine. The Aries medicine is about the sovereign self. So when we're in victimhood, what that means, it doesn't mean that we have not been wronged by another person, but to keep ourselves tethered and emotionally connected to that is not about honoring what happened. That actually keeps us enslaved to that situation in which we were a victim at that point in time. So the empowerment that we're going to be getting to here in a second really is about renegotiating and owning what it is that we want for the future, what is it that we need from our relationships, and communicating that in a very clear, respectful way, and negotiating terms if possible. And quite frankly, then, like, if that can be agreed upon, great. And if it can't, then we have our answer. So there's that piece too of not trying to force something that that other people may not be in alignment with. And that brings us to the empowerment piece. So we have so it's very interesting how this spread is just organically creating this story of this might be the challenge, and now we're getting into the good stuff. So then that leads us to the Three of Wands. And the Three of Wands is about finding new horizons. He is on the shore, the ships are coming in, and he has already packed his bags and planned for his trip in the One and Two of Wands cards, and now he's in the Three of Wands, and he's just waiting for those new horizons. So if we can create a plan, a strategy, and imagine where it is that we want to go, then it's going to be a lot easier to sail our ships and perhaps even, have a whole armada of friends and family and people that we've negotiated needs and terms with to get to those new shores. But we have to first set our compass. We have to first set our compass. The Eight of Swords is the self-sabotaging beliefs. So this is the anchor that might keep us stuck. Time to pull up the anchor, and it's time to move on. There might be some things where some of these challenges for some folks who are getting this message, some of these terms and things that we're working through, some of the tough, sticky places in the relationship, these might be things that we've worked through for the last few months, that we've been milling over, or perhaps we've had this conversation before, and now we're finally coming to a conclusion of what the long-term solution is going to be. And then the Prince of Swords is reversed, and so he's like, don't be impetuous. And so as we're moving offshore, we're not in speedboats for this. That this is more like a pontoon. We're going, and that's okay. It's okay. Slow and steady wins the race. And if we're trying to get to where we need to go and we're trying to be too forceful and too pushy, then that definitely could be imbalanced Aries energy. And then we might end up actually wasting a lot of energy. So there's a lot of messages that are coming around this about being strategic, being intentional, and being very clear as to where we want to go. And that actually wraps into one of the things that I wanted to bring up in the astrology, which is Mercury is in Virgo. It's very happy in Virgo. And Mercury now is out of retrograde and now has gone direct. Holla! And it's at 28 degrees. 2 plus 8 equals 10, which reduces down to 1. But it's also, so it's like a new beginning. And 1 and 0. 0 is like the cosmic egg. So it's like the seed of new potential. And so here we have numerology that's saying the 2, which is duality in relationships, and 8, which is karmic cycles, have a potential to create the seed of a new beginning. And this is giving us the ability to take all of the information that we have accumulated from when Mercury was retrograde, and we were being invited to go in, we were being invited to listen, to take stock, to clean house, to clean our subconscious, maybe detoxify our body. And now it's like, okay, now what do I do with that information? How can I take the information that I have and create the new shifts and changes that I really need to make? The other piece too with the Prince of Swords that seems very important, and this is actually related to that Mercury in Virgo that's now direct, is the fact that the South Node is in Scorpio and Saturn is now in Aquarius at 18 degrees. So both of these have elements of transforming karmic patterns. It is about freeing ourselves from anything that may take away our personal freedoms, including self-sabotaging beliefs and habits, and perhaps relationships that might encourage us to be stuck in old patterns. That these relationships, they have the option to get on the transformation train or not, and they can stay at the station if they choose to. And if that's the case, well, baby, you got to take care of yourself, yo. Like, if it's time to get on the transformation train, then don't get stuck at the station. Don't let other people keep you stuck on the, waiting for another train to come. Because some situations and relationships, they may never get on a train. And that's okay. But you got to do you. And that's the Emperor. And the Emperor card, ironically, is associated with the zodiac sign of Aries. And it's got an Ankh on it. Now you probably can't see it on the camera, but he holds a staff and it's got an Ankh on it. And the Ankh is about life and death, and it's about reincarnation, and it's about that cycle. So very much aligned with this South Node and Scorpio. Scorpio is all about transformation, death and rebirth, magic. And so this is a really good time. I also think that here on the Emperor card, on the back of his chair, are wings. So what is it that's going to support your freedom? And what relationships, and how can we renegotiate terms for our relationships that will help support freedom, that will help support creativity, that will help support free communication? And let's not allow ourselves to be entrapped by either our own self-beliefs and habits or codependency with relationships that may have run their course. So that is the full moon in Aries. It feels like it's a real big deal, and at the same time though, it feels like there might be some pieces that are really challenging and uncomfortable, but there is such a beautiful opportunity here to step through this doorway that will ultimately lead us to where our heart truly wants to be, and will allow us to be in a better alignment with our own authenticity. There was something that came up around that with Gemini. I wrote this down. Where was it? Mars at 22 degrees in Gemini. And what I saw with that was that doorway. Gemini, again, is about balancing duality. Mars is the planet that is associated with Aries. And 22 is a master number in numerology. And so both Gemini and the 22 degrees is a doorway between the lower self and the higher self. The lower self is going to want to keep us in a false sense of security to things that actually don't create security, but create the illusion of security simply because they are familiar and comfortable. And the higher self is going to be that nudge, that push, that feeling inside where it's just like you just know that there's something more. You just know that even if it's difficult, that it's going to be worth it. So there's a powerful doorway with this full moon that is opening, and I invite you guys to put out the welcome mat and walk on through. So thank you so much for joining me here today. If you are needing some one-on-one support or need some personalized clarity, take a look at www.BeTheWholeYou.com, and there you will have access to all of my availability for one-on-one support, as well as on that channel or on that website is my podcast channel as well, that has a whole plethora of different resources on how to find the magic in the mundane. Thank you all for joining me here, and I look forward to seeing you back here in a couple weeks where we will take a look at the new moon.